What's up guys, this is LH with Low-Tech, and we're doing a quick review of the Pearl RearVision Backup Camera. So this is a license plate frame that has cameras in the frame, and that transmits via Wi-Fi or Bluetooth over to your smartphone. Then you get to use this as your backup camera instead of running wires or having something professionally installed or something like that. This is a very quick, very nerdy, at least nice looking solution for people who actually want to add a backup camera to their car, whether it be a new model that just happens to be like an entry level. For example, we put this in on a Hyundai Sonata 2015, and the base model doesn't come with a backup camera. So it worked there, but it will work all the way back until pretty much any car that actually has license plates. So overall, it's really, a very good solution that would fit pretty much everybody, as long as you have a smartphone, but it may or may not be the best solution for the money. It is on the rather expensive side. It is roughly about $500 over Black Friday. Over the Christmas season, you were able to get around $400. But still, it's not a very cheap solution. If you are looking to run wires yourself, you could get something like this equally effective, but maybe not as elegant solution, somewhere in the $150, $200 range if you actually ran all the cables yourself. But for a wireless solution, this is probably the best one that's available. And overall, it looks really nice. The cameras perform very, very well, but it does have a significant number of drawbacks that may or may not be a deal breaker for some people. The first thing to note though is there's actually three pieces that are required for this to work. There's this piece that actually attaches to the license plate. There's like a second piece that attaches to the device itself, or to the license plate itself, and this attaches to that cover. And this is actually secured onto the device using a proprietary Allen wrench. So it does kind of prevent somebody from stealing it without actually planning on stealing it. They most likely don't have this particular tool or even have something that would work unless they forcibly broke it off. But so it is more or less secure onto the back of your car. It wouldn't be something that somebody just steals out of the blue. But Pearl has said in their frequently asked questions, if it is stolen, that they would replace it. A second piece is actually going to be something that plugs into your car, into the diagnostics port, that gives the phone, at least letting it know when the car is actually on, as well as being a speaker, kind of giving you notifications through there, just in case the sound is off on your phone, stuff like that, so alert you when you're backing up into things and stuff like that. And it does give you like a nice little beep signifying when there actually is something you might not be noticing in the rear view camera. The third thing would be your smartphone. You can work on Android, works on iOS, but that's pretty much what you need. It's pretty minimal requirements, so most phones that you have nowadays should be able to run the software. There are a couple of things to be aware of though in terms of compatibility. Most iPhones should be okay, at least the recent ones. But for Android, it does require either a very recent level of Bluetooth, so everything has to be at least Bluetooth 4. So if you do have a device that is more than 3-4 years old, most likely you're not going to have that. It also needs to work off of, I believe it's 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi, and not all phones have that either. So it might have a couple compatibility issues with Android devices, but if you have a recent device, probably not. It does switch between those two communications technologies. The negative about necessarily using Bluetooth is that, especially this is a Pixel phone, it uses Bluetooth for at least the majority of connections, at least from what we can tell, is that the bandwidth of Bluetooth for video is not the best. So you are going to get some pixelation, some blocking in the video. It won't actually look quite as sharp as it could. The cameras are actually really nice, but in motion sometimes it does look like a very compressed video on the phone screen. The second thing would be that there is a fair bit of latency between the cameras and the phone. So An important thing to know about this device is that it does get updated over time. You do have an app that's on here, as well as there's firmware that gets updated on both other devices to improve performance over time. So some of these shortcomings may be addressed as we go, but as of now, as of early 2017, these issues still persist, at least on my device. So there is a little bit of latency between what your car is actually doing, as well as what the cameras are actually seeing. So it's not something you want to, back up very quickly and, use the camera to estimate how far you are from the nearest car, because the camera has a slight bit of delay, and sometimes it actually does freeze for, half a second and then catch up, which, if you aren't paying attention, if you are just actually moving very quickly in your car, could give you an accident. So something to be aware of. You have to actually be very careful when you're backing up, but if you are, then it does work. The second thing to be aware of is the speaker on the diagnostics port. That actually will notify you sometimes even before you see the item or the object that you're about to run into, whether it be a car, a bike, or something like that. So you'll hear a beep, but sometimes it actually won't let you know on the screen immediately, what it was beeping at. You'll hear the beep, and then you'll look over the screen, and then it'll actually notify you. So I'm not sure if that's by design, so it gives you a second to look at the screen again, but it is there. The next thing about this device is that it does have an internal battery, and it is actually solar powered. So in theory, you'll never have to take this off your car and charge it if you actually live in a sunny place. Us being here in Seattle, it still died on me within 2 months. The battery just didn't charge at all, even using it on average maybe 3 minutes a week. So just over 2 months, it just died. It could have been that the battery itself wasn't charged fully, and then over time, after we got it, it just never could maintain the charge. But if you are in a less than sunny place, that may be a downside. Another thing to keep in mind, though, is the shape of your car. If the license plate is inset a little bit deeper into the car, this may not get as much sun, which means it actually might die on you and not work. When that happens, there is a USB cable on the device itself. Pull this out here. It is kept pretty snug, and that would just charge on your computer or a phone charger or something like that. So it's nice that the cable's included, but it's also unfortunate that 2 months in, we already needed to charge the device. Another thing to keep in mind of when you're actually considering purchasing one of these is that it being an app, something that gets updated, there is being firmware updates and stuff like that, especially if you don't use your car that often, you actually may not always be up to date every time you turn on the car. So whenever you load up the app, when you're in the car and you're ready to use the backup camera, there will be times where you will get an updating thing, an updating notification, and it can take a couple minutes for the license plate to update, the backup camera to actually update. There is no way to skip that currently, so you can't use it during the old firmware if you actually wanted to, back up your car, let it update while you're driving, because the cameras never turn off while you're driving, at least up until you get 10 miles an hour. But there's no way to use it while it's updating. So if you want to use it and you're in a situation where you're backing up and you don't actually want to hit anything, you turn it on and there's an update, you are going to either just risk it and back up without actually using the cameras, or you're going to sit there for a couple minutes waiting for it to update. In theory, it's nice that it does get updated and the device does get better over time, and the connection performance has gotten better since we first received this unit. It's still a pain that it actually does not always work when you need it to, just because it's updating itself. So it would be nice that it actually would update when it's near Wi-Fi near your house, or if it would update when you're not necessarily using the app. But unfortunately, it doesn't update until you open the app. That's normally when you actually want to use it to back up. So it is a negative there. Another downside of wireless technology, especially having something more so high-tech outside of the car, is that in colder conditions, we have witnessed that the performance has decreased. Here in Seattle, we had about 18-degree weather, which is cold for here, and it didn't want to turn on. It would just give us a notification saying that the device was unavailable, which, again, when you actually want to use the camera, is not necessarily the best thing to get. If you can't rely on the device to always be working, then you tend to not use the device quite so often. So it eventually did work after the car warmed up a little bit, after we were driving around for a little while. But if you have to wait for you to drive around a little while and wait in the car, sometimes it's not worth actually even taking out your phone to use the backup camera. Another thing to keep in mind is, based on the design of your car, this license plate cover here actually might be exposed to the elements a little bit more. Normally it isn't. It's pretty well covered just because the cameras are on the top, so it might be underneath the lip of the trunk. However, if for some reason, it's raining sideways like it does every so often, and the water were to freeze or the water were to get on the cameras, you will get nice big spots of water on your screen. This does happen on other cameras as well, but it would have been nice if it was somehow a little better shielded from the elements, especially when it is, frozen ice on top of it. You can't see anything through the backup camera, which means that you can't also use it. The picture quality of the cameras is actually really, really nice. Depending on the orientation of your phone, you do get a couple of different views. For the cameras. In default portrait mode, so like this, you actually would get a zoomed in of the middle by default here, as well as the full pretty much 180-degree view from the back of the cameras. These both combine to create a 180-degree view. You'll probably be able to see the area that's most important to you right behind the car, as well as being able to see the left and right and see where vehicles are coming towards you. And you can actually tap on this left and right and have the camera pan, artificially pan to left and right, so you can kind of see bigger on here where what's coming down the sides. If you are to go into landscape view, you would get the backup view on the camera here, and it would just show everything, the full 180-degree view on one screen. Going into the app itself, it is a little bit limited in what it can do. I mean, it does what it's designed to do. It does pretty well, obviously outside of the connection issues, but there are things like whenever you go above 10 miles an hour, the camera actually turns off. I'm gonna guess that's mostly to do with conserving battery. It would be nice if it actually would turn off when you were actually going forward, but it does actually keep running until you hit above 10 miles an hour, and then you go into this view. This is the default launcher that you get afterwards, and there are a number of apps that you can put into these little 4 boxes to quick launch, to load up Google Maps or Pandora. However, it is not any app that you want. So in our case, we wanted to load up the Android Auto app, which you can now have Android Auto as a pretty much like a launcher to use while you're driving, and we can't put that as a preset. So I find that as a really big downside of the app. I can't have it automatically load into Android Auto. Another thing about the app that is a little bit limited is that it will launch the app automatically when you put it on the connector in the car. However, it is a little less reliable than we would like, and there is no option to automatically launch the app as soon as you get into the car and you connect to the car's Bluetooth, which other apps are able to do, such as Android Auto. Android Auto can launch as soon as you connect to your car's Bluetooth, and this can't, which means that you actually need to go in and manually sometimes click on the app in order to get it to work, which shouldn't be that big of an issue, but in terms of making you actually want to use this every time you back up, it is just another negative to pretty much make the whole process a little less seamless. The app does provide you with backup indicators. So you actually can kind of see where your car is in terms of what space it will occupy. And it's all based off of data you have to manually input to the device. It doesn't say, what kind of car do you have? Oh, it's this one? Okay, this is how wide your car is, this is how high your car is. It wants you to go outside and measure your car, which, But one of the downsides of that is its detection of things is not the best in terms of, either collision or even for your width of the car. So we did upload a video a little while ago about that, and sometimes it will detect things like speed bumps, which obviously is not an issue, especially even when you're going forward. It will just start beeping because it sees a speed bump. You're moving forward, great. I don't care about the speed bumps when I'm going forward, especially since the speed bump's already behind me, means I already drove over it. The other thing is it has these lines in the back, just like most other backup cameras, kind of telling you where your car would be in terms of width. However, the lines don't actually move when you turn the wheel. The app has no idea if you're backing up into a turn or you're just backing up straight. It just always assumes you're going back straight, which is a bit of a downside. The other thing would be it also doesn't register when you're going over some things sometimes. I found that the detection is either a little too sensitive and the alarms will go off of just the exhaust from your car, or it'll be not sensitive enough and you'll be backing up slowly into an object, and since you're going so slowly, it doesn't actually tell you that there's something there. So it's kind of hit or miss with the backup detection. The good news is usually, at least in our case, we can see where the bumper is, so we have an idea of where our car is when we're backing up, and if we've never actually had an issue with that. But the whole warning sensors aren't all that useful. Backup cameras are really designed to be used all the time to make your job of driving safer. And the interface, the communication issues, all the little idiosyncrasies of the device really make this a little bit of a chore to use sometimes. And since you can't always rely on it to be working, you tend to not actually use this unless you really need to use it. So whether you're in a parking garage or something like that. Whereas with our other cars that actually have a real backup camera already installed, we use it pretty much every single time we back up. This one, you have to take the phone out of your pocket, put it on the little stand. You can hold it, see it, and hope it doesn't have an update, as well as hope you don't have connection issues, as well as hope the battery is charged. It's just so many different things that can go wrong that you don't use it every day. And for a device like this, you really should want to use it all the time, especially for $500. You want it to work seamlessly 100% of the time, and it just doesn't. Hopefully all these issues are resolved over time. However, as of right now, I probably wouldn't recommend it to most people who, even if you have the extra funds, just because it's not the best backup camera you can buy. Who I would recommend it for would be somebody who actually needs to transport this to cars. They switch cars a lot. They don't want to wire stuff into your car because it's really easy to take this on and off of a car. And it would be good for people that only need this for emergency situations, for those rare times where they're in a parking garage where there's a lot of cars and you don't have a lot of space. And you just want to be extra safe. It's for those kind of situations. For people who need a backup camera day in and day out, this is not the solution that you should probably get. Thanks for watching, guys. This is LH with Low Tech, and this has been a quick review of the Pearl RearVision Backup Camera. Subscribe.